Well, the story begins with Mizutani Shizuku, a first grader from Suoyo High School. She sits next to Yoshida Haru, but he was suspended the first day and never returned to school because he beat several upperclassmen for saving a boy. He is the phantom first year. She has a dream, and she spends her time studying without being distracted by anything, although she lacks a new study guide. Then she is interrupted by Siko, her teacher. She gives her an assignment. Shizuku goes to Misawa Game Baton Center and asks for Haru. The manager calls him and she sees how Haru beats up a boy just because he lost in his game. At that moment, Haru sees Shizuku and immediately runs away by out of the window. Then she, surprised, leaves the assignment that her teacher gave it to the manager. While on her way home, Haru jumps on her and asks her if she is a spy for the school. But when she denies it, he changes his attitude and sees her as her friend. So, our protagonist leaves him very confused. At school, Shizuku tells Siko that she has completed her assignment and asks her to buy the new study guide she needs. And Siko asks about Haru and is surprised when our protagonist tells her that he saw her as a friend. Then Siko asks her to make him go back to school, but she refuses. At the end of classes, Shizuku is caught again by Haru, who hides and takes her to where he has a lost dog. She doesn't like animals, nor does she feel anything for them, but helps him return it to the owner. After that, they are eating a hamburger when several boys appear, including Yamekin, whom Haru calls his friends, but they only ask for money. Then, Shizuku takes advantage of Haru's curiosity about the school to tell him to come back and that those boys are not really his friends. But Haru gets angry and throws his soda on her head, getting her all wet and leaving while he calls her a bad person. An angry Shizuku throws her milkshake on his back and runs away, because he starts chasing her. The next day at school, Siko tells Shizuku that if Haru doesn't come back he will be expelled. So, our protagonist goes to the game center to see him, but the manager tells her that he is not there, although he invites her to bat. While she's batting, she hears the guys who ask Haru for money say that since he doesn't give them any more, they won't look for him. Then Shizuku realizes that Haru had heard everything and looked sad, so she goes and confronts them, telling them to be honest with Haru. One of the boys tries to touch her, but is stopped by Haru, who menacingly picks him up and tells everyone to go. Afterward, Shizuku goes home accompanied by Haru, and on the way he starts crying with happiness and tells her that he will go back to school for her, and when Shizuku hugs him, he says that he loves her. She thinks it's an imprinted feeling because he doesn't have any friends, but Haru says that his feelings won't change even if he gets friends. The next morning, Haru is nervous about going back to school. He also has the wrong idea of how to behave in school. He beats up older students, threatens others, and even strips when he thinks she's making advances on him. One day while they were alone, the teacher approaches them and Haru gets upset when he sees her, but as Shizuku stops him, he gets rude to her too, so the teacher gives him a love book, which will help him treat women better. He reads a page and hugs her as it says in the book. Haru always insists on being by Shizuku's side, and wants to go eat moja, but she refuses since she just wants to study. Then she tells him that, at the opening ceremony the highest score student gives a speech and it wasn't her. That's why she works hard, to be able to beat that boy. At that moment, Haru looks at our protagonist's homework and begins to correct it. So, she remembers that the boy with highest score was Haru, and she gets very angry and goes home alone. Later, while trying to study alone, she is kidnapped by the boys that Haru beat up before. Then Haru goes to rescue her, and when he finds her, he gets angrier and goes to hit them all, but one of the punches accidentally hits Shizuku's face, who starts bleeding. She gets mad at Haru and ends their friendship. Times later, she achieves first place in the exams, but she doesn't feel happy. So, she goes to the Misawa batting center and looks for Haru, showing him her first place and thanking him for rescuing her before, and they become friends again. As the days go by, Haru has calmed down and he even tells her that since she cares a lot about studying, he cares too. This makes her blush and she tells him to go eat manya. On the way, she tells him that she saw him happy and that's why she told him to go eat. And suddenly Haru kisses her. At the end of the kiss he looks confused and says that his heart did not race like the book that the teacher gave him said. Although he tells her that he still loves her, leaving our protagonist completely red. They arrive at Manya's restaurant. Shizuku is still excited by the kiss and doesn't stop ordering food, although she doesn't know why her rapid heartbeat hasn't calmed down. Since she was a girl, Shizuku has always been interested only in her grades, but now she feels strange. While she helps in her father's store to set the prices for the products, she notices that lately she has been unfocused. In class, Professor Siko tells Haru that he must take the makeup exams, since he didn't name the first exams so he failed them. but he refuses to give them if Shizuku doesn't give them too. She sees Haru's exams and notices that if he had put his name on it, he would have scored higher than her. These days, Haru began to take a rooster to school and have it as a pet, and although everyone has gotten used to his bizarre behavior, she sees him differently since she only thinks on their kiss, to the point that she ignores him when he talks to her. She thinks that maybe she is falling in love with him. The two of them are walking home when suddenly a girl tries to talk to Shizuku, but she trips and falls to the ground. She is Asako Natsume, their classmate, who asks her to help her study for the makeup exams, since if she fails, she will have to take remedial classes and will not be able to attend an event with her friends that day. Our protagonist refuses, although Natsume insists, showing her that it is an important event for her at the high school community. But nothing works, although Haru, upon hearing about the community, agrees to teach her if she takes him to her offline gathering to make friends. They start studying in the library where Shizuku is, and it shows that Natsume is dumb to study. After that, our main character goes out to eat next to Haru's rooster named Nagoya. Suddenly, Haru appears looking for Natsume, who apparently has escaped from him. Shizuku takes the opportunity to tell him that he shouldn't worry about being liked by others, and he replies that before he was afraid of feeling empty, but not anymore because now he has her. The final exams of the semester are approaching and Shizuku can't concentrate even in the library. Then, a boy from the baseball team approaches her and introduces himself as Sasahara, but tells her to call him Sasayan and asks her how she became friends with a guy like Haru, and also tells her that he and Haru went to the same middle school and Haru went 3 years without attending class, which doesn't surprise Shizuku. As he leaves, she asks him for a favor. She wants that he takes care of Nagoya and Sasayan accepts. After that, Shizuku finds a desperate Natsume because the makeup exams are the next day and she hasn't learned anything. So, she starts teaching her until dawn, while Haru fights with Siko for taking Nagoya, the rooster, to school. In the end, Natsume approves her makeup exam, but in the event Haru behaved so badly that she had to leave the community. The day passes, and now Haru is looking for Shizuku, but she is on the roof of the school with Natsume, who tells her that she will invite her a juice as a thank you for her grades. But when she comes back, she sees Shizuku asleep and Haru next to her, so she leaves them alone. Hours go by, and when she wakes up, realizes that she was on Haru's lap and worries that she missed a class. But Haru reassures her and she begins to that thanks to him because her world has expanded. It has changed, so she tells him that she loves him. Shizuku regrets her confession and blushes, but upon hearing this, Haru proposes to have a relationship. But she says no because what she said is a lie. Therefore, Haru tells her that it is better that way, causing our protagonist to be surprised by that answer. Already in class, Sasayan returns the rooster to Haru because it cannot stay in his house, and Siko starts scolding Haru again, until them come up with the idea of asking permission to keep it in a chicken coops like middle school. At first, Siko refuses, saying that the director will not allow it, but he allows it and she has no choice but to accept. In the library, Natsume, Sasayan, Haru, and Shizuku are planning how to build that chicken coop, and they agree to go shopping on the weekend to buy everything and build it, which excites Haru. The day comes and they meet first at the Misawa Center. Sasayan and Natsume arrive first and see how the manager gives money to a guy. Then Sasayan goes to bat for a while, and Natsume scolds to the manager for lending money like that. In that, Haru arrives and starts playing with them, until Shizuku arrives late because she fell asleep, saying that her brother broke her alarm. At the hardware store, Shizuku bumps into the boys who were asking Haru for money. Sasayan, seeing her in trouble, throws a basket at one of them, causing that they chase them, and when they go to grab Shizuku, Sasayan yells at Haru, who ends up knocking down 2 of them. In the end, the 3 of them leave the store and only Natsume remains, who ends up buying the materials. They are going to build it at Center Misawa's parking lot, but it is very difficult for them to cut the wood, so Haru goes for a chainsaw that the manager said he had, and at that moment the same guys from the store appear. While Natsume goes for ice cream, Shizuku freaks out, but they explain that they just want to reconcile with Haru. Then Haru comes out and he wants to hit them, but Shizuku tells Haru that they want peace and for that, they will help them build the chicken coop. When Natsume arrives with the ice cream, several of those boys fall in love with her, and in the end, they manage to finish the job and become friends with Haru again. At the end of the day, Shizuku goes to her house with Haru. In that, she confesses to Haru that she fell in love with him, but he tells her that he is afraid that her love is different from his. So, she proposes to start all over, and when he falls in love with her, she will confess to him again. In that moment, Haru receives a message from the manager saying that Yuzin is coming, and he gets scared and tells Shizuku to spend the night together in another place. They arrive at her house, and her father receives them. Surprised by Haru, she tells him that her mother is working and prepares dinner for him. Then Haru takes a shower and sees a shadow watching him at the bathroom door. After that, Shizuku is embarrassed because Haru is without a shirt, and when she goes to see him, she finds him asleep on the sofa, so she sends him to sleep on a futon, thinking that he behaved strangely. On the other hand, we see that in the Misawa Center, Yuzin arrives looking for Haru, and although the manager tells him that he will not return that night, he stays to have tea. The next day, Haru gets up and tells Shizuku about a boy who was staring at him all night. She tells him it's her brother. Haru feels very comfortable in that house, since he asks Shizuku to give him a fried egg with a broken yolk and tells her father that he is nothing like her daughter. At school, Haru got higher grades than Shizuku in the exams. He wants to go to the beach in summer break, but Shizuku refuses because she wants to study more. In that moment, Sasayan appears with a list to sign up for a sports day event. Then she goes to complain to Siko about her grades and manage to raise it. Shizuku doesn't know how she fall in love with Haru, and she runs into him when some girls bounce their ball near Haru. He hands them over with an angry face, and she tells him that she likes when he smiles, making him blush. So, Haru starts smiling at everyone, causing many girls to fall for him, and this makes Shizuku jealous. The sports day events start, and Natsume is good at sports, and when she and Shizuku finish playing, they see that Haru is surrounded by girls who want to feed him. Then Sasayan appears and tells them that he is glad that it works out for him this time because he had problems when he stopped going to middle school when they were younger. Shizuku questions him why he cares so much, and Sasayan tells her that he owes him a debt. Meanwhile, Haru is surrounded by girls. Then a girl with glasses arrives telling the others that the teacher is calling them to set up the next event. But since none of them want to leave, she goes alone. At the end of Haru's game, he runs into the girl with glasses and a group of boys who begin to treat her badly. So, Haru interferes to defend her, and end up fighting one of those boys who are older than him. After hitting him, he realizes that this girl with glasses is looking at him with great fear, just like everyone else. In that moment, Shizuku appears and takes him out of their running, since a teacher began to persecute them. Afterward, he feels bad because the same thing happened to him as a boy and he felt it was bad. Then Shizuku tells him that he is a good person. He did not act correctly, but he is a kind person and everyone will realize one day. Haru approaches Shizuku to wipe her forehead, and when they are very close, they blush. But Sasayan interrupts them, because the next match is about to start. So before going to play, Haru tells Shizuku that if they win, she will go somewhere with him on summer break. She accepts and wish him good luck. Summer vacation arrives, so Shizuku, Haru, Natsume, Sasayan, and the bathing center's manager Misawa go the mountain, swimming in a lagoon and fishing in the river. It's time to eat, and Misawa tells them that he is Haru's cousin and Haru does have an older brother, and when he goes to talk about him, Haru shuts him up. At the end of the day, they go back to the bathing center and suddenly Haru run away, because his older brother, Yuzin, was at the door. Natsume thinks that Yuzin was the guy who was borrowing money from the manager the other day, but he explains that it was the other way around, that he paid him a loan he had, and we find out that the manager is called Mitsuyoshi. Yuzin tells them that Haru runs away every time he sees him because he has a brother complex, but he entrusts Shizuku with taking care of Haru since they tell him that thanks to her, he returned to school. On her way home, Shizuku is caught by Haru, who asks her if she smashed the watermelon with Yuzin. She denies it. She also tells him what his brother said about him, but Haru tells her that it is not a brother complex, it is hate, and gets upset when she wants to know more. She gets upset too and leaves but come back for him. At the end, Shizuku takes him to her house to smash his watermelon together. Back home, she realizes that she doesn't know Haru at all. He apologizes to her and she tells him that she accepts his apology if they go on a date together, so Haru agrees. Haru tells Mitsuyoshi about the date, and tells him that he knows what to do during the day, but he doesn't have plans for the night, and Mitsuyoshi advises him not to have plans at night because he will scare Shizuku. They return to school and Shizuku sees Haru and tells him that he has arrived early. He tells her that he arrived at 6 a.m., just for the excitement of seeing her, making everyone to look at them. Already in class, Natsume has a flu, and everyone asks her not to infect them. Then Haru sees that Shizuku is studying trigonometry, which is from the following year, and she asks when he studies. So Haru explains that he doesn't study now because he did not go to classes in middle school, so he was free and studied all that. In addition, he takes the opportunity to ask her where she wants to go on their date, and Shizuku says the library. They leave class and see a group of girls admiring a boy, who is Yuzin. Haru disappears when he sees him. So, Yuzin ends up taking Shizuku. Haru was hiding in a bush, and when he comes out, he scares the girl with glasses and asks her to see if his brother is still there. When he is not there, he stays talking with her and discovers that she is the class representative, although they only chose her because of her glasses. At that moment, Haru receives a message on his cell phone from his brother. It's a photo of him and Shizuku challenging him to guess where they are together, and he runs away to find them. Meanwhile, Yuzin is with Shizuku and only talks about sweets, until, after buying some donuts, he tells her that when Haru had a fight as a child, his father kicked him out of the house. But now he wants Haru back, and asks her to keep him in school so that way his father has no excuse for taking him away. Suddenly, Haru appears and takes Shizuku, but she asks him to listen to his brother, and Yuzin tells him that he must stay in school, so Haru agrees and leaves with Shizuku, asking Yuzin not to come looking for him again. On their way home, Haru demands her not talk to him again, but she refuses since they are nothing, though he ends up reminding her that she told him that she loved him and causing them both to blush. Then Haru begins to speak about his childhood to Shizuku because she wants to know more about him, and at the end she holds his face and says that he should go home if he wants to, even if it makes her sad. But Haru says that he wants to be with her. The next day, while they are going to school, Shizuku thinks that she is afraid of losing him, since it never occurred to her that he could go away from her. After that, while Natsume and her are putting their things in their lockers, the girl with glasses appears and thanks Haru for helping her with those boys the other time. Haru listens to her and tells her that it's nothing causing the admiration of this girl. Suddenly Shizuku passes and looks at her and sees that this girl is falling in love with Haru. It's a new day and Shizuku is very distracted, thinking about how to get rid of the feeling she has and why she feels that way. At that moment, a fax arrives from Yoshino, asking if she and her brother are working hard. At the school there is a girl with glasses. Her name is Oshima. She texts with a friend named Yu, who is in another school. When Ashina arrived at that high school, everyone had already made friends and she has been left as the loner in the classroom. Then she listens at the girls from her classroom talks about Haru, and gets sad when they say that he is dating the girl he is always with. At Shizuku's classroom, they are going to choose the class representative and Haru puts on glasses so they will choose him. But in the end, they do not choose him for any position. So, he leaves disappointed. After that, Natsume and Sasayan are talking about Oshima and they believe that she likes Haru. But Shizuku says she doesn't care about that because her grades are going down. At lunchtime, Oshima is eating alone on a staircase when Haru appears next to her and says that the glasses did not work. And he realizes that although she is a class rep, she has no friends. Then Oshima asks him about Natsume, believing that he is dating her, but he clarifies that she is his friend, but that he loves Shizuku, leaving Oshima in shock. Natsume arrives and sees them. Haru explains that Oshima has no friends, so they make a meeting in the library to help Oshima to have friends. But Shizuku, who can't stand feeling like this, says that she won't help and leaves. The next day, in gym class, the teacher attaches Oshima and Shizuku to stretch as a couple. Now together, Oshima takes the opportunity to apologize for the day before, but Shizuku tells her that if they bother her, she should tell them to stop. But Oshima thinks that it's not that they bother her, it's that she lacks confidence. Later, Oshima is on the stairs alone again, until Haru appears and asks about Shizuku, since she has been avoiding him. Oshima takes the opportunity to tell him to continue with the topic of getting her friends, and she asks Haru if he loves Shizuku in a romantic way. But seeing that Haru gets nervous, she asks him not to answer her. Then Natsume appears with Shizuku and Sasayan and tells them to play. Sasayan is playing tennis with Natsume, but in another side, there are Shizuku, Haru and Oshima in the middle of the two. Haru complains to Shizuku because she is avoiding him and she basically tells him that she is in love with him and that distracts her from her studies. Then, Oshima is upset because Haru did not understand Shizuku and begins to scolding him. But realizing what she did, she runs away and Natsume tells Haru to go after her. Finding her, Haru tells Oshima that only people who try too hard explode like this and that she should just push herself as hard as she can, making her like him more. Shizuku remembers her childhood and remembers why she likes to study, coming to the conclusion that studying makes her feel complete and will ensure her a bright future, and for that, she will throw away everything that distracts her. The day of the date, Natsume and Sasayan go to see them at the Misawa Center, and Mitsuyoshi tells them that Haru and Shizuku have gone to their date in the library. They also talk about when Shizuku proposed to Haru and Natsume realizes that Shizuku doesn't tell her nothing. Natsume is saddened by this, but Mitsuyoshi tells her that Shizuku is like that, but when she tells her things, she should listen to her. At the library, Shizuku tells Haru that she no longer feels attracted to him, because she has discarded everything that distracts her from her studies. Haru returns from the date disappointed, and Mitsuyoshi tells him that he found the photo of Kyoko, Haru's aunt, and he remembers when she adopted him. The next day at school, Haru is with Nagoya lying in the sun when Oshima appears and he tells her that they haven't seen each other since she exploded. She then thanks him for the advice he gave her and tells him that she feels better, but Haru tells her that Shizuku rejected him. Although he did not declare himself, Oshima tells him that he should do it. While they were talking, Natsume was spying on them until she interrupts them, telling Haru that he has to keep trying and not be a loser. After a while, Haru is walking with Nagoya, thinking about how women always scold him. Then he remembers that Kyoko told him that one day he would meet someone with whom he felt good. In that, he sees Shizuku resting at the library window and goes to check on her. Haru tells her that he loves her, leaving Shizuku surprised, but she continues saying that she doesn't feel anything for him anymore, to which Haru tells her that it is enough for him to just be by her side. But then he tells to go out, and since she doesn't accept, he begins to insist, causing them to fight. The exams finish and Haru surpassed Shizuku again and tells her that this time he tried a little harder. Just a little. So, she leaves angry, and Haru remembers what her aunt told him, saying that if she tries harder, he should try harder. After that, Shizuku goes to her support classes at cram school, where she sees Yamazin. Another day at school, Haru and Shizuku are together and she gives him the tickets for the festival, but he takes advantage and licks her hand, making her angry and telling her that if he continues like this, he will no longer trust him, and if he wants to be close to her, he must be 2 meters away. This makes Haru very angry, who retaliates by breaking some boards and complaining to Natsume, although she explains that it feels repulsive that the boy you don't like touches you like that. Over there, Shizuku passed and sees Sasayan with some friends, planning how to have better stalls for the festival. And as she gives them ideas, she asks them for 50% of the profits. But later in the meeting where they decide those positions, one of the seniors pushes her and Haru hits him, causing them to give them the worst possible spot. After that, we see Haru being punished by pulling grass when Oshima appears and advises him not to act violently if he cares about Shizuku, and also tells him that her name is Oshima and that she will not act with remorse, as he advised, but hiding is Shizuku, though she wonders why she is. Afternoon falls, and Shizuku is with Natsume and Sasayan, going to see the grade she got in cram school, when she bumps into Yamazin and the boys. These two alone goes to see their grades. On the way she asks why he is with them if they are stupid, and Yamazin tells her that he has fun with them. Shizuku sees that she got the highest grade and thinks that she is doing the right thing. She returns to Natsume and Sasayan, who stayed with Yamazin's friends, and see how they are pressuring Natsume to give them tickets for their cultural festival. And when she refuses, Shizuku gives Yamazin hers, so that he can distribute it with his friends, since Haru would have done the same. Night falls and Haru returns home and finds Shizuku waiting for him. She gives him a package from Natsume, and seeing that Haru wanted to say something, she goes ahead and says that she will never fall in love with him. But he tells her that he will change her mind. Surprising her, he takes the bag from her to accompany her. He goes to kiss her when remembers what Natsume told him, so he stops. But Shizuku, getting angry, takes her bag back from him and runs away. She thinks she is doing the right thing, but then she wonders why she felt so excited for him again. The day of the festival arrives, and our protagonist's stall is a horror mansion, in which Yamazin's friends enter and see Shizuku dressed as a nurse. She guides them, until Haru appears dressed as a vampire, and Shizuku leaves. In the mansion, Haru sprays them with fake and they ask him to introduce them to some chicks. Meanwhile, Shizuku is in the backyard, thinking about how she lost control of her emotions the other night. Suddenly, Yamazin appears, who tells her that he is leaving, but he seems to be lost. Then, Natsume arrives and they guide him. They reach the schoolyard, where Haru is showing the boys his rooster Nagoya. Natsume hides out of fear of Yamazin's friends, while Haru complains to Shizuku because she was with Yamazin. So, Yamazin grabs Shizuku and Haru gets mad, because she does not allow him to touch her. And out of anger, Haru tries to hit Yamazin, but ends up hitting her. Shizuku tells him not to come near her again. As Shizuku leaves, she is followed by Natsume and starts talking to her, and even wants to give her some advice. But Shizuku is curt, saying it's none of her business, leaving her depressed. Then, she runs into Yamazin, who brings ice for her nose and tells her that the problem is she expects Haru to live up to her expectations, but she doesn't want to live up to his and that it's cruel. While they are walking, she thinks about how she treated Natsume badly, and Yamazin sees Yuzin, who had gone to the festival with Mitsuyoshi. Yamazin gets scared and goes into a classroom with Shizuku, where he tells her that he had an accident with Yuzin at the school where they studied before. Suddenly, Haru enters the same room with Oshima. They start talking about Haru's problem for loving Shizuku, and Oshima takes the opportunity to declare her feelings to him, but he doesn't understand. Seeing this, Shizuku wants to leave but is held down by Yamazin, who catches Haru's eye and makes him angry by seeing him hug her. But Yuzin enters the classroom and Haru grabs Oshima tightly and releases her to escape from his brother, leaving even his shoes. Yuzin sees Shizuku and wants to talk with her, but Yamazin gets in the way, overcoming his fear. So, Yuzin just gives Haru's shoes to Shizuku and asks her to give it back. Then he leaves with Oshima to leave her in her classroom, and Yamazin leaves with his friends. While this is happening, Natsume is crying, but she is comforted by Mitsuyoshi until Sasayan arrives and stays with her. Afterward, Shizuku hands Haru his shoes and apologizes, telling him to forget about not approaching her. Haru agrees and goes to apologize to Oshima. Then she goes to apologize to Natsume. She comes to apologize, and that's when Haru appears, who was hiding in a bush with Nagoya. And then Sasayan tell them to go to work. The festival continues until night comes and Haru falls asleep while he waited for Shizuku to washing herself. She sees him sleep and wants to stroke his hair, but when she is about to touch him, he wakes up and says that he does not know if he has a chance or not, and he hugs her. Shizuku is sincere and explains that by thinking about him too much, she gets distracted from her studies, so she asks him for more time. Chapter 9. Shizuku wakes up and sees Haru in her room, who got in through the window because her father was surprised to see him, since he thought there were classes. Then she remembers that her father should be in her store, and goes out to scold him, so he tells her that the store went under. She calls her mother, Yoshino, to give her the bad news, while her father tells Haru that Shizuku is very calm because it is the 6th time that the store went down. Shizuku is going to change her clothes and goes with her father to see how to fix the business, asking Haru to leave. At the center of Misawa, Sasayan, Haru and Natsume studying while the two boys are talking about the girlfriends they have had or if they have already done, making Natsume uncomfortable, until she asks Haru about what happened with Shizuku, and he tells her that Shizuku has asked him for time to sort out her feelings, and that was a month ago. Then, Shizuku arrives at the center at the request of her father. Later she asks Haru to accompany her back. On the way, he asks about her father, and then she tells him how her mother always works, and she wants to become a working woman too. Suddenly, Haru grabs Shizuku's hand and leads her to a river where he thinks to find a crayfish to give it to her to cheer her up, but she refuses. Another day, Yamazin is looking for some books in the library and finds Shizuku there. He asks about Haru and she tells him that he has stayed in the river fishing for a crab for her. But then she thanks him for his words because now she is facing everything that happens in her life. At a cafeteria, Natsume is with Sasayan waiting for the others to study, when suddenly some girls from Natsume's classroom enter and she hides with the menu since those girls make fun of her in the past. These girls see her and start judging her by talking to each other until Mitsuyoshi arrives and intimidates them, so they leave, leaving Natsume touched by him. Night falls and Shizuku and Yamazin say goodbye, who begins to realize that he is in love with her and that he has her pen. Meanwhile, Shizuku arrives where her friends are and sees that Haru is still in the river, but although he found a crab, he didn't catch it and says he will give her something better. In that moment, Yamazin passes by in his taxi and sees Shizuku, so he gets out to return the pen, but realizes that she is with Haru and her friend, so he waits for everyone to leave to give her pen to Haru. Haru complains to him and then asks him if he is in love with Shizuku, to which Yamazin says yes, and leaves. One day, Shizuku found an invitation for a Christmas party in her locker, and ignoring it, and she found another one in her backpack. So, she angrily asks Natsume, who confesses that it was her. That day arrives, so Shizuku with Haru and Natsume are doing the shopping for that party, but Haru behaves strangely and wants to attack everyone. They enter a fast food store to buy chicken, and they meet Yamazin and his friends who join the Christmas party, although they do not have an invitation. Yamazin also joins in, but Haru says no and says that Yamazin is in love with Shizuku, causing everyone to listen and be shocked. But Yamazin tells him it was a joke and everyone thinks the same. They all go to the batting center of Misawa. Mitsuyoshi don't have problem with the Christmas party as long as they don't make too much noise. On another place, Sasayan is going to the party, but he sees Oshima and invites her to go, although she initially refuses, but in the end, she agrees to go with him. When they arrive, Yamazun's friends get excited because she is another girl. Mitsuyoshi realizes that Natsume is avoiding him, and Sasayan releases that it's because she has fallen in love with him, and is disappointed since he had feelings for her. In the end, Mitsuyoshi is happy to see how Haru has friends and has matured. The party continues, and Oshima doesn't know how to behave with everyone, so Sasayan tells her to ignore them, and that they see that Shizuku is still studying. Even at the party, and Oshima asks her if she will go to the winter session at the cram school, because she will go to the regular ones. Shizuku says yes, and Yamazun tells her that he too will go to those classes. So Haru asks his cousin if he can go to those classes, but Mitsuyoshi says that he doesn't have money for that, besides that he doesn't need it. Then Yamazun's friends are playing in the batting zone. Meanwhile, Natsume tells Yamazun not to get involved in the relationship between Shizuku and Haru, but he tells her that she should also scold Oshima, who was just passing by. So Natsume tells him that Oshima knows her place, making her depressed. It is already night and everyone is leaving, so Yamazun tells Haru that he will be his friend in exchange of Shizuku. But he does not accept, and Yamazun tells him what would happen if Shizuku liked him more. So, Haru raises his hand towards him, but Shizuku appears and he tells her to leave together, not before threatening Yamazun to keep his hands off her. On their way home, Haru asks Shizuku if she must go to those winter classes, since he is jealous that she will spend the whole winter with Yamazun. But she confesses to him that she loves him and says that he shouldn't worry, making him smile. But Haru keeps asking her not to go. The winter prep course has started, and while Shizuku walks to the entrance with Yamazun, she is followed by Haru, who keeps asking her not to go. Then she gets angry and tells him not to mess with her studies, entering classes angry. We see Shizuku and Yamazun in these classes, and she tells him that she's hungry, so he thinks about inviting dinner. But he realizes that she had brought her own food. Yamazun is from a well-off family with money, and he has always gotten what he wanted, and on top of that, he hasn't had any problems with girls. So he doesn't understand what he likes about Shizuku. At school, Sasayan is showing the boys the photos he took from the Christmas party, and Haru sees in a photo that Yamazun is talking with Shizuku, so he throws it aside angrily. Natsume goes to pick it up and sees that Mitsuyoshi is in the background, and she also doubles it, nervous. Already on the way to cram classes, Yamazun sees Shizuku from behind and wants to greet her, but it's no her, is an old woman, and then he notices that a girl is staring at him, but he ignores her and follows his path. Then, he meets the real Shizuku and wonders if he should hit on her. In that moment, he grabs her to move because it was passing a bike, and as he has her embraced, Haru appears and hits him on the head. But Shizuku scolds him since he has followed her again. After that, she goes to the classes with Yamazun, who pretends to hug her, so Haru out of anger throws a can at him. But this can fall on Shizuku, making things worse, and she kills him with her eyes. Already in class, Yamazun notices a bump on his head, and Shizuku apologizes to him, and tells him that she will help him put on something cold so it can come down. But he refuses, although his heart is pounding. Then, she tells him that she confessed her feelings to Haru and that it is best that he distances himself from Haru and her, not out of jealousy, but because it shows how attractive he is. Leaving class, Yamazun feels good thinking that she finds him attractive, until he realizes that the same girl from a while ago has been watching him, and he ignores her again and leaves quickly. That girl is Yu, Oshima's friend. Later, Yamazun gets lost and reaches where Haru was, who tells him to accompany him. On the way, Yamazun tells Haru that he has changed, remembering that Haru beat him up in the past. But Haru tells him that the one who has changed him is Shizuku, and that he is afraid that she will leave him. Yamazun takes his taxi, and Haru threatens him in case he does something to Shizuku, but he ignores him and leaves. It starts to rain, and Haru remembers how he went from being admired by his brother to being told that he wished he hadn't been born. In that, Shizuku arrives. Seeing that Haru is waiting for her, she doesn't know how to react. Haru hugs her and says that he loves her, and that he wants her for himself. Shizuku tells her that it's impossible, because her studies are also important to her, so she wonders why they never match up. In the end, we see how Natsume arrives at the center of Misawa alone. Natsume enters the center to give something to Sasayan, who is with his friends. In that, one of them pushes Yama, a Sasayan's friend, who apparently likes Natsume. She notices this, and seeing that everyone is making fun of him, she treats Yama badly and leaves. Before leaving, Sasayan catches up with her and explains that they didn't mean any harm. She tells him that she feels bad because guys always confess to her for their own fun and make other girls reject her. Also, she feels irritated because she doesn't talk to Shizuku because of her cram classes. Haru is in a bad mood these days and Shen can barely talk to Mitsuyoshi. To which Sasayan says it's because she in love with him, and she begins to deny it, until a happy Haru enters, causing them to ask him what happened. Haru is happy because Shizuku proposed to Haru to go on a field trip. But if he leaves her alone until New Year, so Haru accepted excitedly. The next day, the classes end, and everyone says goodbye to spend these days until the New Year comes. At New Year's Eve, Shizuku calls Natsume to ask her how to program a TV recording, and she takes the opportunity to tell her that she feels lonely. Therefore, she appears at Shizuku's house along with Haru, since Natsume invited him. The three of them spend the night together, taking advantage of the fact that Shizuku's parents went with her grandmother, and they fall asleep. Later, they are woken up by Natsume's cell phone. It was Sasayan, who invites them to the New Year's festival. Arriving at the festival, we see that Yamazan's friends are fighting with some boys, and Haru appears and he ends up fighting with those boys too. But Yamazan thinks that if Haru is at the festival, Shizuku is there too, so he goes to see her. Finding her, he tries to buy her something to eat, but she pays for it herself. After a while, they meet Sasayan, who is with his baseball friends and Mitsuyoshi. Everyone goes up to the Mitsuyoshi's roof to see the sunrise and Natsume, once again treating Yama badly. She starts talking to Mitsuyoshi about what happened and finally tells him indirectly about her feelings. But he doesn't react, so she's going to see the sunrise too. All this was being heard by Sasayan, who approaches Yana and tells him that his plan backfired. Meanwhile, Shizuku and Haru are waiting for the dawn. They watch the sunrise together, but Sasayan realizes that Natsume has left alone and Mitsuyoshi thinks that he is already old. Haru tells Shizuku that next year they will see the sunrise together again. The festivities pass, and Shizuku spends the holidays studying alone at home. But she keeps thinking about Haru, since she hasn't seen him since New Year. In that moment, she hears him calling her name, and suddenly he appears at her window, wearing a strange outfit, helmet, goggles, and a net. He was looking for something, but he didn't say what. He leaves, leaving his cell phone at our protagonist's house. Then Haru meets Natsume and asks her if she has seen him, but she doesn't understand, and he runs off, leaving his net. And the same situation happens with Sasayan, who was with his team playing baseball, and he leaves him his goggles. One of Yamazan's friends, Joji, had an appendectomy, so he and his friends go to visit him and take him for a walk when they suddenly run into Haru, who does the same thing, and he leaves them, leaving his keys. One by one they go to Misawa Center to deliver Haru's things. First Natsume arrives and sees that Mitsuyoshi is not there. Suddenly Shizuku arrives, but she just leaves the cell phones and goes to study. Then Sasayan arrives with his team and they stay with Natsume waiting. In the afternoon, Yu meets Nagoya the rooster, and she writes to Oshima, who calls her to guide her to leave Nagoya in the Misawa Center. At the center, Sasayan and his team was already leaving when they collide at the entrance of the center with Yamazan and his friends, who went to leave the keys. Now at Shizuku's house, she wants to call Haru, but she prefers to prepare rice and she realizes she doesn't have it. So she goes shopping and meets Yu in Nagoya. In the end, Yu arrives at the center with Shizuku and Nagoya. Everyone plans to go look for Haru, except Yamazan and Shizuku, who go home. On the way, Yamazan gets lost and Shizuku ends up helping him find the avenue. The others are looking for Haru on the street, motivated by Natsume, but they stop when Joji's wound opened. Shizuku is returning home and she meets Haru. She says that they already found Nagoya, and everyone is waiting for him in the center. But he wasn't looking for his rooster. He was looking for a glowing bug that he saw and wanted to see it with Shizuku again, because it'd be prettier if she was with him. Suddenly they see the glowing bug and she says that it was the most beautiful thing she saw, and she hopes at some point to be able to be honest with Haru and show her feelings. The story centers on ancient Japan, within the Shogun Kingdom, in the town of Edo, where there were two sides that were constantly in conflict. Suddenly we see Shizuku, whom is called Ashizu, leaving the palace after giving classes. She meets up with Kenji and his friends and they leave, since they are all from the Mizutani group and she is the leader. In that, while she leaves, Sasayan, who is called Sasajiro, is seen as some kind of ninja, which confirms that Ashizu has already retired from the palace. Yu sees this and talks to Shizuku, the princess that Ashizu teaches, and she is tired and wants to eat a sweet, but she can't because the emperor has forbidden them. Suddenly, we see that the Mizutani group is walking through the village, while Ashizu tells them that soon the princess will help in the Mizutani group's temple school, and it will be the first step to create a true academy in the village. When Natsume arrives, whom they call Onatsu, she is the one in charge of writing and distributing flyers in the town, showing her news about the market for sweets. But Ashizu only corrects her spelling and she gets angry, because she thinks that it only needs to look pretty, and leaves, angry. In that, they hear that the Mizutani group is arguing with Sasajin, who pretends to be from the Yoshida group, but Harunosuke, as they call Haru here, gets into fight, although he is stopped by Mitsuyoshi. Then, Kenji steps in and tells them not to fight in the street, which angers Harunosuke, who launches himself to beat Kenji. But Ashizu yells at them and he dodges Harunosuke, throwing him against the food baskets. After they leave, Harunosuke hears Yuyuzen mocking him for not having friends, which makes him leave, while Mitsuyoshi corrects Yuyuzen and asks him to put away his candy. Later, we see Ashizu reading near the river while she thinks about how the conflicts worsen, and although she received permission from the emperor to teach there, but she has not found the leader of that group to communicate to him. Then, she gets up but her sandal breaks and she falls into the river, so Harunosuke, who was passing by, sees her and throws Nagoya tied up with his clothes, so she can grab it and thus saves herself, although she is scared to see him faints. Upon awakening, he introduces himself and tells her that he takes care of the rooster, but he does not tell her that he is the leader of the Yoshida group, so she introduces herself as a teacher. Harunosuke suddenly gets up and paints Ashizu's lips with some cherries, but since it start to itch, he gives her some herbs that serve as medicines and says that there's a lot he can teach her. So, that night, she stays thinking about it, although she is scared by Onatsu, who was watching her. At the same time, Harunosuke was with his rooster thinking about Ashizu. The next day, the boys from the Mizutani group are arguing with Sasajin, because they have all the girls, when Yu appears, who was looking for the bucket for sweets, but goes to talk to Sasajin, although he tries to keep his identity a secret. But then all the boys see Shizuku running to see her and overwhelming her, until Harunosuke appears and scares them away, but also scolds her, and she falls in love with him for being the only person who treated her like a normal girl. After that, Yuyuzen asks what happened, and Mitsuyoshi explains that Harunosuke saved someone, which surprises him. Later, Harunosuke and Ashizu spend more time together, watching the ants and learning from it, so she later can teach her classes. Then Harunosuke tells her that he wants to spend every day with her, and she accepts. Meanwhile, Yuyuzen was on a nearby bridge and is visited by Onatsu, who gives him a package, and he tells her that he will give her special information in exchange. After that, we see that she has distributed flyers around the town, and it ends up in the hands of Harunosuke, who is angry to see that they are building another temple school in the town, and although Yuyuzen's ally tries to persuade him to order it to be destroyed, he remembers Ashizu and decides to do nothing, surprising Mitsuyoshi. But all this was heard by Yuyuzen. Then Onatsu distributes another flyer again, mentioning that the person who throws a stone into the river and it bounces 10 times will have guaranteed success in love, so Kenji, Harunosuke, and Shizuku decide to go. That night, Shizuku is at the riverbank with Sasajin and Yu says that she must throw the rock because she loves Harunosuke, while Harunosuke was with Mitsuyoshi on the other side of the river and Kenji was lost, not knowing the way. Suddenly, we see Onatsu dancing on the bridge, happy because she is a thief who will take advantage of the darkness to rob those who went to the river, when she is interrupted by Sasajin, who confesses that he is a government agent and asks her if the river is magical. Onatsu freaks out and says that she thinks it is, or at least that's what the information broker told her, and she leaves, leaving Sasajin thinking. On the other hand, Shizuku was trying to carry a giant stone, and when she throws it, she does it so hard that it ends up hitting Mitsuyoshi at the other side of the river without him noticing. And just before he catches Onatsu trying to steal him, and when he kindly stops her, she falls in love with him. Harunosuke accuses Onatsu of throwing the rock at Mitsuyoshi, but Onatsu nervously points to a bush from which Kenji emerges and these two begin to argue. On the other side of the river, Yu talks with Shizuku about the people who argue on the other side, and Shizuku mentions to Yu that she will talk to the emperor to lift the ban on sweets. But in that moment, Yuyuzen appears eating some sweets and smile at them. The next day in town, Kenji shows Ashizu how the Yoshida group have destroyed the temple school, and she says that she will destroy them. At home, she gets ready, while Kenji waits for her, and when he wants to stop her, he trips and falls on top of her. So, he tries to propose to her, but Ashizu bumps his head and tells him that if something happens to her, it's all up to him. After that, Ashizu arrives at the bridge, where she will face the group leader Yoshida, but upon seeing Harunosuke, they are both surprised. but Ashizu takes out her katana and runs to attack him. But before the two start to fight, Sasajin appears and tells them that Haranosuke didn't order anything. Also, Sasajin tells them that he found out who did all that, and cuts down a bush, discovering that it was Yuyuzan, who had Shizuku and Yu tied up. He first denies everything, but Sasajin shows evidence, including a DNA tests, so he accepts everything, since he sold sweets and made a lot of money. Ashizu wants revenge, and Haranosuke supports her and says that they will live together and rebuild the town, which hurts Shizuku, because she has been indirectly rejected. These two decide to attack him together, but suddenly, Nagoya lands on Yuyuzan's head and begins to shine, and then goes to the head of Chaoji, one of the boys in the group, and controls him to tell a story. He starts talking about how he is an alien rooster, who came from space with Haranosuke to rule, and now that he has learned everything, he must go, so Chaoji grabs Haranosuke, and like a spaceship, he flies off, taking him with him. Ashizu follows them, but fails to grab Haranosuke's hand, who disappears into the sky. As time passes, the two groups together try to rebuild the village, when Chaoji with Haranosuke and Nagoya fall from the sky, so Ashizu runs to hug him and he ends up kissing her. Bye.